First of all, congratulations on our on the win for Ryan, the mayor, and everybody else knows hard about that also. Thank you and congratulations. I just have two things. First, I wanted to ask where we are on the plastic ban that's supposed to happen in January. Everybody knows that. And also, like, I don't know if anybody else has noticed, like, the beach is drowning in dog food this season, and it's just never been like this. I've never seen anything like it. I don't know. More people have dogs now, so also I have a dog. Like, it's you know, we love the dogs and running on the beach and stuff, but the amount of dog food on the beach is like, it's astounding. So I was wondering if there was, like, anything anybody could do about that.
Okay, to your first question, the plastic ban, the ordinance is actually on the agenda this evening.
Oh, beautiful. Great.
The second one is a little more complicated, and we're going to need to work with the police to figure out enforcement methods to try to catch them in the act, so to speak. Because that's where the enforcement happens, and then you know, we can always.
There's like more garbage cans that they like. I know we don't market garbage cans on the new seawall. I get why that was trashy, but I mean like, there's tons of trash cans on this side of the seawall. There's not on that side, right? Which is fine. There's storms, there's wind, but like if people don't physically see garbage cans, they just don't care. You know what I mean? We do get more garbage cans out of my hall. All right.
Thanks,
you guys.
Manny.
Hi.
State your name and address for the record, please.
Manny Curcio, 1340 Ocean Avenue. Congratulations on everybody that won. And thank you, Dina, for your service over the years. I was curious about what's going on with the Edgewater Beach Club since they sent out this thing by registered mail. And if I read it correctly, they're looking to put sand berms back up there or something along those lines. And I remember you had told me that the state and the EPA had stepped in banning that. So I was just wondering what's going on with that. Thank you.
So you have to get, if you want to do sand scraping now, you have to apply for a permit, Catholic permit from the state. So we didn't think that they were going to, but Edgewater has applied for the capital permit to scrape sand from the state, and was actually discussed at the workshop meeting a couple days ago. I think the government, I don't want to speak on behalf of the governing body, but there was consensus that there was opposition to this action because of the impact that it has on the adjacent beaches, as you know. So we'll see what happens. But it's in the state's hands to say yes or no. If you have strong feelings, you may also want to submit a written comment.
I do.
I will state that that the state has not made it easy for them because they have to take a pre-scraping survey, and then after they scrape and put the sperm up, they have to put the sand back to the same exact level and also survey afterwards. So they're not making it easy for them. So we don't know if they're actually, Edgewater's going to go through with it once they find the red tape that they have to go through, but we're as Dina said, we're going to contest it because we don't think it should be something that should be done, so.
I mean, you can't do one or not all.
Could you define scraping?
Well, it's basically where they're pushing the sand up to create berms. In Edgewater's case, they're actually taking from the water line all the way and pushing up, which, as Dina said, creates a divot in their beach, which then fills from the sand from the other beaches and kind of fills that hole. So they're actually stealing sand from other people's beaches by doing that. So.
And the state of emergency does allow us to do sand scraping berms for shore protection, but it's in state of emergency when we're anticipating strong impacts from storms, and the height of the berm is supposed to be no higher than 6 feet. And as you have probably noticed, they have far exceeded that in the past, which is why the state cracked down on it.
Everyone being 12 trade-winds, if I could just follow up on that. I think you saw this past year that they made berms that were close to 15 feet high.
Yes.
And on trade-winds, we're a public beach. So the water goes around that and creates a gouge right in the public beach. And I guess the expectation from myself and the folks in the room is the town council is going to take a very hard position in opposition to this to protect that beach. So what exactly are you going to do?
So there's a comment period for the capital permit that was applied for by the beach club. So the borough will state a strong opposition to the granting of said permit. We can point to damage to adjacent beaches, as you point out. Furthermore, as you may be aware, beach replenishment is coming. Right, so you're going to be getting new sand on that beach and treatment. So you have to make sure that the profiles don't get messed up. So they're being engineered to last us 10 years. I think the gentleman who came to our last meeting told us.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, congratulations on your election, or I was almost going to say condolences. I'm Joe Savino, I'm here with my wife Joanne. We live at 21 Trade-Winds. We're 2 homes over from Trade-Winds, so it's Edgewater, 2 homes over from Edgewater. And similarly, I have great concerns about this berming. We witnessed massive bulldozing of sand last year, literally bulldozer in the water. We literally took pictures of it because it was so shocking. We're new to Seabright. It's our first season. We love it, by the way. We love the town. We love where we are. But it was shocking to me that that was permitted, or that when it was reported that I don't feel like there were consequences. And it still concerns me, the letter that we received, it said the application is for seasonal movement of sand. And that's why I asked you when you said scraping, we need to define this. Is this, my grandkids were on little surfboards going down this mountain of sand. It was great fun, but not good. And it caused significant erosion laterally in front of the public beach. And at the same time, we're fortunate to be getting beach replenishment, which at great cost to the taxpayers and subsidy that we've received. So I just can't imagine that this can be done without the big picture of the entire beach taken into consideration. They own beachfront property, as do some of us. So I do ask the council to take a very serious look at this, and I have very strong opposition to this being an unregulated bulldozing of sand. So I have great questions about who's going to monitor it, how much sand is permissible, there's issues on trafficking, and I actually am pro-business. I'm an entrepreneur, I'm pro-business to the state, and I understand people want to expand their businesses, but not to the significant detriment of neighbors. So my question is do we as Seabright have a planning and zoning commission that this has to be approved by as well?
No.
So it just goes,
The state has jurisdiction over the beach. Our jurisdiction is inside of the seawall.
so we will record it and write, and we will appropriately do so, but for the record, we want to express significant opposition to what we saw without a permit last year is frightening to imagine with permission what may occur there. So, and especially in light of the very much needed beach replenishment. Thank you.
You should also, on that point, rather than just doing it yourself, but you should get your association to object.
Yeah, the association's working on vigorous.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
The more objections.
The more objections, the better, exactly.
And we can point to, you allow us to be able to point to as residents expressing vocal opposition at public meeting. So,
And also, all the questions you bring up are valid questions that the state should have. The state should have answers for them. If they don't, then we have to, we have to complain about that as well, because there's nobody, like, as you saw, there's really nobody holding them in check to, they might get the permit and say, yeah, you can do it, but there's not anybody standing there saying, oh, you're too hot, okay, stop,
Eric, can I follow up? In the present permit at Edgewater, they're precluded from putting utilities in, power and water. Their new permit requests that. They've been doing that power and water for the last 3 years on the beach. Now, I would think the town has the authority to inspect power going to people who are using it on the beach so that they don't get injured. So somehow the town has not been inspecting the fact that they are violating the permit by putting electricity out on the beach for the cabanas specifically.
well, it's something that we could look into. I don't know that we're able to, if they're doing work without coming in for permits, then
That's a violation. That's a code violation.
I understand that, but I'm saying we don't have a record of, we'll have a record in their approvals of what they should have out there. And I know very recently, because of the property reevaluation, everything was inspected at those beach clubs. But I'll make sure that they take another look.
Okay, so I have a copy of the permit, and I was on the beach yesterday, and every cabana hookup, electrical hookups, they have 33 cabanas that they don't have approval for. And somehow that got in without the town inspecting it. That's a violation. I'd like to see that investigated, thank you.
Thank you for bringing it to our attention.
Thank you. Joe Savino, as a follow-up to that. We also have a safety issue. The parking lot at Edgewater is full. And literally, I've seen cars drive over the sidewalk, right? You all might see the tire tracks. So we have a number of issues here. To me, most significant is the preservation of this beautiful beach. But we do have issues around traffic. We have safety. We have people walking on these walkways. We just renovated the beach property. We went through rigorous inspection. Like we couldn't even open our front door without getting things stamped and approved. So to hear things like people are getting hooked up and they're getting hooked up without inspections, like that was shocking to me, given what we went through, which I was glad to go through. I felt like it was good for our town. It was good for the development. It was safety oriented. But to imagine that there'd be hookups being done without inspection is a little shocking to hear, so I do appreciate you looking into that. In addition, it does seem reasonable to me that if a local business, a developer, were to come into town and create additional use of our infrastructure, there's often requests by developers to support that, either with financial support to do what is right to, preserve our infrastructure, including our beach. So those are some of just a short list of some of the things I am very opposed to. Thank you.
Any other remarks from the audience? We have some presentations on our agenda this evening. The first one is related to the district-wide facilities renovation program in the Oceanport School District. So I'd like to welcome our superintendent, Ann Casendo, and I believe you have your project architect with you.
We do. Thank you so much.
Frank Messinio.
Very good, yes.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank Mayor and Council all for having us. Mark is a parent, and I really do appreciate your help.
I'm not a parent.
You just come to our meetings. Well, thank you so much.
That's, at least not that I know of. I don't think.
So it is my great pleasure to be here this evening. Seabright is the sending district to the Oceanport Public School Districts. Our buildings are rather aged, and they are in serious need of upgrade and repair. The Wolf Hill Elementary School, which services pre-K through grade 4, is 108 years old. And the Maple Place Middle School plans began for that school in 1964. Its doors opened in 1966. Our median age of the two combined facilities is 81.5 years. And there hasn't been much in terms of referendum. I believe we had one in 1996 for some improvements, but there's so much that needs to be improved. To give you a full picture of exactly what we need to do, we invited our architect of record, Frank Messinio from Solutions Architecture. We've also invited our bond counsel, Mrs. Lisa Gorab is here, so that if you have questions about tax impact, we can answer those questions for you. Frank?
Great, thank you very much. Thank you for having us. We want to talk a little bit about how we got here, because this didn't just happen overnight. So we'd like to go through this. Can you guys see this? I'll stand back. So this process has gone on over a year now, and we got involved and worked with the district to come up with a program that would best serve the needs of the district and yet be fiscally responsible and palatable to the community. The district goals that we were charged with were creating an environment for 21st century life skills, academically, socially, being able to prepare our children for a successful future, to focus on teaching and learning, to make sure that what's going on provides a comprehensive learning experience for the children, and to focus on student health and wellness, to create an environment that supports growth, supports education, and allows the students to thrive. The board worked as a whole on this project, and they worked with school administration and staff to identify and prioritize the needs. They considered ways to improve the existing facilities infrastructure. We know that there were other things that were looked at in the past, and so this plan looked at how can we figure out how to fix the existing facilities infrastructure and create projects that ensure a safe and functional school. We considered ways to improve the student experience. It's not just about creating a safe environment, a building, but we want classrooms that support the curriculum, that can handle the way curriculum is now and the way classes are taught now. And the board worked with us as their architect and our engineers to provide recommendations on what the best avenues for construction would be and what plans would help take care of the district. So ultimately, that all culminated in us proposing a request for funding for a district-wide facilities renovation program that would create functional, sustainable infrastructure and classroom renovation and additions for the district. And that would all be done via a referendum vote. And there's two key components here: creating 21st century schools for the children in the community, and the undeniable fact that facilities support the programs that the schools are engaged in. Why now? The Board of Education and the administration have successfully addressed many issues within the operating budget. However, we need to do more. We're dealing with aging schools. As Ms. Facendo said, one of the buildings is 108 years old. The average age of these schools is 85 years old. The earliest, the youngest addition is 23 years old. So we're dealing with aging schools. Some have original windows, original doors, other infrastructure items, the mechanical systems, the electrical systems that have reached the end of their life expectancy. The other key piece here is that borrowing rates are at historic lows, but they're not going to stay there forever. So we want to try to take advantage of this. The district has a 2% cap that they cannot go above. So it makes it difficult to do big ticket items, large projects, roofs, windows, those things that are costing hundreds of thousands as opposed to just thousands. In spite of the cap, the district has continued to maintain the buildings and do the best they can, but that's an ongoing annual operating expense. It's an ongoing expense they have to do to fix windows, leaks, leaking roofs, doors, repair ceiling tiles caused by damaged roofs. So it's an ongoing fight, and we can never really catch up. And the referendum is our one best chance to do something like that. And by allowing the district to finance these over many years, the cost is spread out, and debt service aid is available. So the benefit to us is that we can continue to do these out of operating costs and try to get ahead of it. We're paying full price. If we do it under a debt service, we get up to 40% in eligible cost from the state. And I'm going to go more into debt service aid, eligible cost, and what it costs later. So given the fact that these projects are all tied to education and maintenance, they're all eligible for debt service aid. And that means that the state's going to help pay down the bond. Our efforts to date, I said this has been a year-long process. We did a facilities audit of both schools, teams of architects and engineers going through both buildings to identify concerns, infrastructure failures, problems with the building. We had meetings to understand what the programming needs would be for the buildings. Where does the curriculum go? What do the teachers want? What does the administration want for these buildings? We also looked at the prior concepts that were brought up. Alternate locations, alternate ideas of new buildings. We evaluated those as well against, so that we could make sure that we evaluated the full picture. We did a capacity analysis of the buildings. We developed concepts that would accommodate programming needs. We developed a concept for a new expansion at Wolf Hill School. We considered the Fort Monmouth plans and the influx of people and students that could potentially come from those plans. And we consolidated and worked on budget estimates for the renovations and additions and new constructions, and we went over those budgets because we wanted to make sure we had something that was palatable. The referendum priorities, again, enhanced learning environments, educational programs drive the need to update the facilities. The community believes in the students deserve facilities that support academic, social, emotional wellness, and creative opportunities available to them. Student and staff safety, another important issue. Safety in the students has always been a priority. However, more than ever, it's crucial that we make sure that the infrastructure is secure and can handle the influx of students and the technologies to be able to protect students and staff. And finally, keeping up-to-date operations. I mentioned earlier that every year we have to repair a ceiling and repair tiles and flooring. It's money that comes out of their budget. If we were to do this all now, all that operating and repair costs could be used towards educational programs. We're looking at high impact, low cost projects for this. So not everything is about spending money, it's about creating environments that enhance the school community with school spirit, graphics at the cafeterias, course spaces, multi-purpose rooms, so that we have the ability to create a bright environment for the kids. These are low-cost items that we're looking at. So let's talk a little bit about what exactly came out of all these meetings and intent. We wanted to impact each of the respective areas you see here: arts, learning, wellness, safety, and operation. We've coded them with colors because, as you'll see on the floor plans, we wanted to create a visual aid so you could see how these line up on the plans. There's a series of capital projects that are being done at each building. Schools are going to receive new sprinkler systems. They currently don't have sprinkler systems. We're providing sprinkler systems for the entire building, whole building sprinkler systems. We're providing replacement to antiquated fire alarm systems. Now, the fire alarm systems are fine. They're completely operational. However, they're non-addressable systems. And what that means is, while they'll tell you that there's a fire in the building, they won't necessarily tell you where it is or what room it is. And we're trying to do things that'll give first responders a lot more easier chance of finding where it is and addressing the problem. We're upgrading and expanding camera systems for any of the new areas and areas that currently don't have proper coverage for security purposes. We're providing secure vestibules in each of the buildings. These secure vestibules will have the capability of lockdown, capability of vetting visitors before they get into the building itself. And we're focusing on doors and hardware, and there'll even be safety glazing installed on all the lower level windows of the building. Now, since we have to replace the windows, they're part of the projects, we're going to put laminated glass in the lower windows. You may have heard film, people are putting film on existing windows. Since we're replacing the windows, we don't have that. We're going to get the windows designed from the manufacturer and warranted by the manufacturer with laminated glass. We're going to provide much needed roof replacement of leaking and deteriorated roofs. There are pictures you're going to see about the conditions of the roof and the leaks they're causing, and for us, building envelope is probably the most critical thing that we can address in any building that we're working on. Asbestos tile flooring throughout. Now, there's asbestos tile floors in the building. They're well maintained. They don't pose a health risk unless there's a problem, and since these are well maintained, there are no problems. But if we have the ability to address it, then we'd like to take care of it all at once. This way, later on, when we're working on a project, we don't have to worry about cutting the floor or drilling through a wall and exposing that problem all over again. So we're going to address the removal of all asbestos tile flooring throughout the building. Repaving and expanding the parking lots. It's a big concern in terms of events and evening events. The parking lots are in a state of deterioration. They're inefficient. They're not lined properly. So we're going to expand the existing. We're going to create greater efficiencies, more parking spaces. We're going to provide a drop-off, which you'll see from Maple Place School. We're going to replace and expand the existing playgrounds. We're going to provide new classroom furnishings and casework for every classroom. So a lot of them have deteriorated casework. The art rooms, they're wet, they're damaged, the doors are falling off. We're replacing all of those within the classrooms. Mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and lighting upgrades throughout the buildings. So mechanical systems, rooftop units, boilers, unit ventilators, all of these units and all of this equipment is going to be replaced. Electrical service, upgrades, panels, lighting throughout the building, LED lighting. We talked about the spirit and the branding, in the larger spaces and the spaces where the public comes to. And then one of the biggest charges that we had was at Wolf Hill School, there's lack of ADA accessibility to the building. Wolf Hill itself has 7 different levels that are all accessed currently now by stairs, ramps, if you can call them ramps, but we are addressing those all with ADA compliant ramps. We're putting a new elevator in the building. There will be ramping down from the addition into the new building, or from the existing building into the new building, so that you're going to be able to walk into Wolf Hill and get to any level, any floor, in a wheelchair or accessible. An idea of the roofing systems, Wolf Hill, we're doing 16,000 square foot of roofing systems, and anything that you see in blue is scheduled for replacement. So these are areas that are deteriorated, they're leaking, they're causing problems inside the building, and we're going to address that. Maple Place has 2 sections, about 17,500 square foot of roof is going to be replaced, and again, to address ongoing and continuous problems. The other roof areas have been replaced, so they still have a lot of useful life left, so there's no need for us to spend that money if we don't have it. Just some pictures of some of the varying roofing conditions. You'll see deterioration, water ponding, lighting fixtures. You'll see the old Ed Craig style light fixtures, T12 lamps, ballasted systems, not energy efficient, not really providing the appropriate light levels in the classrooms. So we want to make sure that we address those needs. Toilet rooms are in desperate need of upgrade. A lot of the fixtures are not working, they're leaking, the tiles popping, the toilet partitions are rusting. So we're going to replace and upgrade these toilets. We're going to put new epoxy floors in, new plastic composite partitions, and we're going to upgrade them so that they're more appropriate for, we're going to create ADA stalls where necessary so that they're more appropriate for the building. Asbestos tile flooring in this picture you can see, but that's going to be replaced, as is the unit ventilator that's in need of replacement. Here's more pictures of the asbestos tile flooring, a picture of the gymnasium. The ceiling is leaking, tiles are popping, and these are not like from 5 years ago. These are replaced, and then it happens all over again. So we really need to address the issue. Existing stair enclosures. I mean, these are stair enclosures that get you up to the 2nd floor. and they're glass. They're not a 2-hour weighted enclosure that's required by code. We're going to fix and address the problem. We're going to create that so that it's right. This was the skateboard ramp that we talked about in the corridor at Wolf Hill. It's great for that, but not really for ADA. So we're going to elongate it. We're going to make it work. We're going to address all these issues from that perspective. Existing boilers, they're older, they're inefficient, they're in need of replacement. The fire alarm system we talked about before, Maple Place's roof, again, leaking, deteriorated conditions that we have in certain areas are going to be replaced. The existing art room is older, outdated, and a lot of the classrooms, they're fixed. The furniture is fixed, they're set in place, the science lab itself. So the room has difficulty addressing the way classes are taught today. Classes are a lot more flexible, furniture's moved around, kids learn in groups, kids learn individually. So the classroom operation is so much different than when I went to school. So the rooms, we're going to renovate the rooms, we're going to create more flexible furnishings, movable, things that could be grouped together, things that could be enhance their curriculum and let the teachers be able to operate much more efficiently. Another area of roof that's leaking, you can see now going stains. This one's interesting. It's a wood floor, beautiful wood floor, but because of the leaking roof, the water's getting on the floor and it's creating waves. And that floor, the water swells and the wood swells and the floor buckles, and that's in one of the classrooms. So we want to address all these problems. We're going to take out the floor, we're going to put in new materials, things that work. The roof won't leak anymore, so we'll address that problem as well. Doors and door hardware. So this is a picture of a door that has a knob, still has a knob. Per code, we can't have knobs, and this door is not lockable unless you go outside in the hallway and lock it with a key. Based on security criteria, we can't do that anymore either. So the intent would be to replace all the doors and hardware with compliant hardware, compliant doors that are lockable in the event of an issue. Existing science labs, again, fixed furniture, older, not supporting a growing curriculum, more lighting, electrical panels that are older. The fire alarm system here, again, leaking fixtures, deteriorated tile floors. So that's, the same picture is painted for both buildings, and both buildings are, in a similar state of disrepair. Some worse because of their age. The 108-year-old section is far worse than the 23-year-old section. But we're looking to address these buildings as a whole and not just one area. We're looking to handle everything at once. So now we move on to the educational components. And the educational components came out of meetings with the staff and the faculty and what could be done and what we need, where are the needs for these, for the classrooms and small construction space, and what do we need most? So you'll see that everything is coded like we talked, right? So this is the learning environment, this is health and safety, security, and maintenance. So kindergarten renovations, media center addition, lower level classroom renovations, nurse and faculty room renovations, and cafeteria and kitchen addition, and media center addition. So the first floor, this is an idea. These are window replacements throughout. This is a small office we're putting on this level. Again, on the second floor at Wolf Hill, there's an attic space that's not used. It's storage right now. So rather than expand the building footprint and incur cost of expanding the building footprint, we looked at the possibility of creating that attic space turning it into classroom space. And at a significant discount of building new, we're able to put in 3 full-size classrooms, 2 small group instructions, a toilet room, a new stair, an egress stair that brings you down. So we're addressing issues by reclaiming classroom space, and we're trying to do it in the most economical way. The media center and cafeteria addition, so in red, we have a media center addition, which we're putting on the back of the building. The media center addition will be accessed by its own vestibule, so it can be used at night for events without having to go through the entire building. You can park on the back and go into the media center. The kitchen, so just by way of example, the kitchen that we had before was about this size. The kitchen and cafeteria is about this size. It doesn't meet the criteria for the number of students. It was one of the discussions we had with DOE during the time. So the cafeteria we're providing now is going to be significantly larger. We'll have a full kitchen in and capable of handling for food service, and it'll create a much nicer environment for the building. There'll be some offices, this is the ramping that I talked about coming down into the space. We actually are creating a courtyard between the two buildings. It's required by code because we need to maintain a fire separation distance between the buildings. So we might as well use that space and make that space part of the educational environment. This could be used for classroom space, it could be used for eating outdoors, it could be used for science. There's a variety of things that this could be used for. Our kindergarten renovations, we are taking classrooms. The number of classrooms within the building varied. So you have classrooms that are 600 square feet, 800 square feet, 1,300 square feet. So in order to create more equity with classroom size and increase the classroom size, we're trying to expand the rooms. So ultimately, where we had 674 square foot kindergarten rooms, we're now going to have 1,000 square foot kindergarten rooms. So we're going to do that and create these renovations to create larger space, more efficient layout for our kindergartens, and create better classroom environment.
That's in the kindergarten rooms also.
Oh, yes.
We don't have them now, so our little guys actually have to go out in the hall. We actually have an aide who has to take the kids to the bathroom, because by law, you can't have kids wandering the hall to go to the bathroom when they're 5 years old. So we're actually spending money on an aide to make sure that the kids go safely back and forth. So now the classrooms will actually have toilet rooms with that.
So the old cafeteria used to fit here, and since we're building one outside, now we reclaim this space. This space becomes classroom space for us. So we've got an area for a new science and STEM classroom, language arts classroom, small group instruction. There's also room for a tech office. The old kitchen is becoming part of the maintenance office now, storage and maintenance. And then across the hallway where the media center was, we're creating a technology classroom and a new small group instruction. And then we're also going to have a child study meeting. The second floor classroom addition I spoke of, these are going to be 3rd and 4th grade classrooms, large, and then small group instruction rooms. We also have a toilet for more than one per child. The nurse and faculty rooms. So right now the buildings don't have any faculty toilets. The faculty use the same restrooms as the students. So we're going to eliminate that problem where we're providing a series of faculty toilets in the hallway adjacent to the faculty room. And we're going to renovate the nurses suite so that there's better supervision, better privacy. It has its own ADA toilet within. So we're renovating these to create better efficiency within the building. From a site perspective, so this is the building proper. The green that you see is the new addition. The blue is the upper floor addition. And then you see the parking around. So this parking lot is going to be repaved, restriped. There's going to be new playground areas in the back, additional parking here. And then we're expanding the parking lot on the left. We're creating a drop-off for pre-K here, and we're expanding the parking lot here so that during events and meetings, people are not parking halfway down the street. Maple Place, our first floor plan at Maple Place, again, cafeteria renovations, locker room and gym renovations, media center and small group construction renovations, and then STEM wing renovations. Now STEM is science, technology, engineering, and math. If you create STEAM, it's science, technology, arts, engineering, arts, and math. So we're creating a wing that's in the building. All the classrooms will be based on science, art, life skills, computers, robotics. So the cafeteria renovations that are going to take place, new furniture, new seating, repair of the acoustic tiles, new ceiling or new lighting within the space, new flooring and finishes throughout. The media center is going to be renovated. At present, there are offices here. These offices are being relocated to the front of the building next to the administrative suite so that again, there's greater efficiency there, more where they should be as opposed to in the back of the library. These rooms will become additional small group instruction classroom space. And then the media center will be reorganized and laid out so that there's multiple areas within this overall big room. We've all been able, we've walked into that room, it's one big open space. We want to create intimate areas, collaboration areas, areas for story time, areas for the supervision of students, soft seating areas. So we're going to create a nice environment for the students within that space itself. And then our STEM wing is going to address our art room, our science lab, our art room, additional storage for art, our life skills classroom, our computer lab, our robotics lab, a new robotics lab, and then the guidance office is one of these offices that was in behind the library. It's going to move to the front. And then our locker rooms. Oftentimes in schools today, we're finding that the locker rooms are a wealth of space that is underutilized, and that's mostly because of the shower areas. Shower areas used to be big open spaces that they would have 10 heads on the wall and everybody would go in the room and shower. It doesn't happen anymore. They're not used. So every school we go into that has these old style shower rooms, it's all used for storage. It's all it's used for. So we're going to reorganize the space. We're going to renovate the locker room area, create a boys' locker room, a team room, a girls' locker room, and then shower areas that have stalls, not unlike a toilet stall. Places for people to be able to go in and take a shower, not in the open. So we're readdressing this area. The gymnasium will receive the same kinds of treatments that the Wolfville Gym will receive in terms of finishes, acoustic panel treatments, lighting, ceiling, and address the conditions that currently exist. There's also the other office that was in the back of the library is going to move down here and create an OTPT space. And then from a site plan, we are addressing the parking lot in front. We're actually going to expand this parking, and we couldn't do this too much because the area has wetlands buffers and things along the side of the building. So along the front, we're going to expand and create additional spaces here. We're going to redo the parking that's along the front of the building, provide new walkways, new lighting. Right now you go there at night and there's not a light to be found. So we're redoing back here, this area as well, creating greater efficiencies, replacing the shed, and addressing the bridge that goes across the fields. So project potential. We talked about what's being done, but what does that mean? And we always try to work with pictures, and everything we do is 3D, so there'll be renderings for all this work before as it's designed. But these are what some of these spaces could look like. So these are representations of designs we've done of what the media center could be reimagined. Again, a lot of these spaces you're going to see, they have wheels on the chairs. They're flexible. They move. They move to be able to help that curriculum. Reading areas, playful, fun areas for the children. Computer areas. A lot of these computer labs that had big, bulky computers on the desks, they're gone now because kids are using Chromebooks, and one-to-one initiatives are putting the hands of computers in kids, and they can work anywhere. So we're creating flexible environments that address that. Maker spaces and that technology component. We're providing these kinds of spaces, bookcases on wheels that can be moved around and reform the room into a variety of different configurations. Another middle school type library. Another workspace. This is what I was referring to with graphics. So this was a room that was a cafeteria that was just all white walls, gray walls. And with the use of graphics, vinyl graphics that are applied to the wall, they're durable, they're designed, and you get school spirit throughout the room, and it transformed the room. $20,000 to transform the entire room. The high impact, low cost for that space is incredible. Science labs, again, differences between science labs of old. You can see the tables have, it's 4 triangle tables. They all push together or they're put apart. They can work in a variety of different configurations. New science lab, the only thing that's fixed in this room are the sink pedestals. Everything else moves. The wheels, these rooms can be reconfigured in a variety of different ways. Branding on the corner of a wall. Gray corridor. We highlighted the fact that this was their STEM innovation wing. This is what we can do. Locker rooms, reimagined. Locker rooms, greater supervision, no longer tall lockers that go all the way to the ceiling. Low in the middle, high on the perimeter. The teacher can see what's going on. They're clean. There's no place for anybody to hide, get in trouble. So we create bright and inviting environments. The flooring in these locker rooms is either epoxy or it's rubber, so it's durable, it'll last. That's an example of what we envision for the designs that we're looking at. So now projected cost, because it's the second most important thing that you guys want to hear tonight, is projected cost. The first we're going to talk about last. So we went through and we budgeted these projects, and we met with the board, and we went through the budgets, and we went over the budgets, and we reduced the budgets, and we revised the budgets, and we came up with the list you see before you. So you're going to see 4 columns. The first column is total cost. It's the total cost for each of these roads. The second column is eligible costs. You heard me talk about eligible costs in the beginning. The Department of Education reviews our projects, and it only approves funding for those projects deemed eligible. So, as you can see, Wolf Hills renovations, total project costs are $16.2 million. The eligible costs were only $15.8. So something wasn't eligible. $5 million, $1 million, or actually it was less, $400,000 was not eligible. And we can tell you that it's expanded parking areas in the project were not eligible. Where we're renovating those parking areas, they were eligible. But the third column is debt servicing. Now that's what the state is going to give you for approving the projects and entering into debt. For years, historically, and our approvals from the Department of Ed have a letter that was provided to us that give us approval for 40% of debt servicing. And for years, that's the way it was. But recently, the state, 2009, the state's been funding 85% of the 40%, which equates to 34%. So instead of 40% in state aid, you're getting 34%. So all of our numbers are showing debt service aid at 34%. So Wolf Hill was 16, eligible costs were 15, we're getting 5.3 in debt service aid, and the final cost to the district is 10.8 million. The additions at Wolf Hill, the cafeteria and media center addition, and the second floor upstairs classroom addition, totaled $6.8 million. There's no eligible cost for that because the state's funding of additional and new construction space is based on capacity and need of space. And based upon the enrollment numbers that we presently have, there was no eligible cost deemed by the state. I will point out that we did take into consideration additional enrollment coming in from the Fort Monmouth project, and that's covered in the referendum. Debt service aid, 0. The total cost of the additions is $6.8 million. Maple Place renovations, $10,100,000. Eligible cost $9,581,000. Debt service aid on those projects is $3.2 million. So the total project cost there is $6.8. In total, the referendum price tag is $33.1 million, $33,154,890. The total eligible costs deemed approved by the state were $25,424,571. Of that, we are taking 34% of the eligible costs and coming up with $8.6 million, or $8,654,000. That offsets the $33 million to a $24.5 million net referendum price tag for taxpayer. Clear? I'll make it even clearer. We talked about state aid being available. We talked about having to be part of a referendum. So let's look at, because of the 34% and the 40% and that little confusing thing there, what this is really. So the total project cost is $31 million. We were approved by the Department of Ed debt service aid calculated at 40% of that 25 million eligible projects, which would have been $10 million. But because the district's trying to be responsible, and we're required to tell you that we're eligible to receive 40% state aid. But what's been happening is the 34%, that would have put the district share at $22,900,000. However, what we expect to receive is only the 34% that they have paid out over the last 11 years. That would reduce our debt service aid payment to $8,600,000, which creates the likely district share of $24,510,000. The tax impacts that you see on the left, so at $43 a month for Oceanport, $43.32 a month, or $519 a year for Oceanport, $4.93 a month for Seabright, or $59 a year for Seabright. They're all based upon this number, the 34% state aid. Clear? What's next? So we had a timeline when we started, way back when. We've come all the way down to this point right here, and we're right in this little bullet right here, which is public meetings, and that's what we're doing for you today. We want to make sure that you know what's going on. The vote is December 10th, and we want to make sure that we're letting you know everything that's going on. There's handouts here today. Typical post-referendum timeline. So all the work that we're talking about can't be done in one summer, can't be done in a year. It's going to be spread out over time. And we're very strategic about how we spread projects out, because the more limitations and the more time constraints you put on contractors, the higher the price. And we've been very successful. We were successful in your neighboring district, Ocean Township, with a $29 million referendum to be able to give them money back at the end because of how we laid out projects. Some projects are going to come in over budget. Some projects are going to come in under budget, and you're able to offset the two. We're going to manage it best we can, and there's a lot of things we put into our bidding documents that make it manageable, alternates, deducts, adds, things that are added if the bids come in low, and things that are removed if the bids come in high. So we like to make sure that we have the most flexibility. So right out of the gate, if the referendum passes, we're going to work on the schedule for projects and determine which projects can be put out during the first summer. Then that process repeats itself, and we will have projects going out probably for the next 2 to 3 years, if not more. So frequently asked questions, and I will point out that these are just a couple of the bigger ones, but there is a handout in the back that has questions that have come up from our last meetings, and we've responded to them, and we felt they were important that we just put them in writing. So they're also at the back of the page. But one of the questions that comes up all the time is, why can't the board save all this money? Why can't they stockpile it and save it over years and do these projects? And unfortunately, the board can allocate certain funds to the capital reserve, but they can't stockpile more than the state imposed cap. So they can't do these magnitude of projects. So the referendum is our district's one best opportunity to bring the facilities up to current standards. What will happen to children before, during, and after construction? Obviously, a major concern. We're occupying buildings, we're working on construction. So safety is always a prime concern, and therefore we try to do as much of the heavy lifting and big construction work over the summer months as possible, or when school's out. There is some work like windows that can be done during the school year because they're done on second shift. They're done 3 to 11. By the time the teachers come back in, the windows are in, the classrooms are done, and we can do that kind of work. So we're going to plan this work so that we can do it without students in way. Now, there might be work that's going to be done while students are still in school, and we're going to separate them from construction and make sure that egress is taken care of, and all the safety factors that are in place are going to be in place so that there's minimal disruption. The other big question is, can more money be spent than what's approved in the referendum? And the answer to that is unequivocally no. You can't spend 1 penny more than the approval for the referendum. The district can't take money out of the capital and add it to this and do more work. They can't do that. So what we're going out for, it's our job as the architect and the district's job to manage the cost of the project. We're not going to design something that's worth, $20 million when we only have $10 million to spend. So we're going to make sure that we manage the projects and manage the construction, and therefore we won't spend a penny more than the referendum. If for some reason the projects were to all come in over budget, certain things would have to be eliminated. They would not be able to go ahead with the projects. So what does your vote mean? If you were to vote yes, you get all the capital projects and renovations that we discussed tonight. If the vote is no, then nothing happens to the schools, and the school continues to work on the buildings as they have over the years. And again, trying to play catch up and working against the curriculum, working against the budget, and trying to make sure that they can still fund educational programs. That's all we have. Any questions? Yep.
How much greater is it, because you're obviously doing a great deal of renovation on 2 very old buildings. How much more is the cost to build 2 completely new buildings? It seems to me that would be a lot simpler, be a lot faster, and you would also be able to, I would think, build into it room for expansion in the future.
It's a good point, but so let's talk about it, because we did look at building new buildings. So logistically, if we were to build a new building, we would need a site to do it on. In order to do that, we'd have to have a site. So let's say we were going to use the existing building site. The building's still on the site. Kids still need to go to school. So we still need to maintain the educational environments, build a new building. If you could build the size of the building necessary on the site, which at Wolf Hill, maybe you could. But if you were to build a building behind Wolf Hill and then knock Wolf Hill down and make the fields and everything in the front, you would still, it would cost more money. Because again, if you had a site and you could build a new building, it would probably cost the same. But because we're not knocking these buildings down, and you know, we heard in a couple of meetings that these buildings are past their useful life. I mean, there's buildings standing, you know, for hundreds of years, and they were built probably better than some of the buildings that are built today. So as long as we don't find any major issues in these buildings, and we didn't, we felt that the cost to renovate was going to be less expensive than the square foot cost for a new building. The square foot costs are up there. Yes, Lisa?
And Frank, let's not forget, I'm sorry, if the Sycamore Bond Council to the district, the state does not provide any funding for new construction.
Big one.
So I have another $10 million, right?
Big
Okay.
one. Yes, all right, no, that's probably bigger than maybe my second. So yes, but yes, we did look at it, and at Maple Place, there's no other property to build on. There's wetland buffers there, there's wetlands. So to be able to build a building behind it or without it is very, very difficult. Thank you.
Just to clarify, I'm Megan Walker, I'm on the school board. We also, over the years, I've been on the board now for 4 years, we've looked at every patch of grass available in the town of Oceanport on which to possibly, potentially, hopefully, maybe build a school. There just is nowhere. There's parks, there's, everything's either green acres or open space. It cannot rest that back from the county. There's Fort Monmouth, but that presents its own impossibilities for many reasons. They have a bidding process at Fort Monmouth. They can't really work with public entities. They can work with municipalities, but not public school districts. So their bidding process requires that you have money for a down payment and that you can prove as soon as you close that you can hand over the money, which the school district can never do without a referendum. And they can't enter into a contingency agreement like you could with a private seller. They did at some point offer us a couple pieces of property on the fort. Both were horrible for various reasons. So we have looked at sites all over town, and basically the townspeople last year, we had a proposal that we were thinking about putting on the ballot. Moving the school to Crescent Place, which is the old Humboldt building. There was a big outcry. The people in town really seem to want schools to stay just exactly where they are. They want pretty much basically what the board is giving them now. They want the neighborhood schools. They want the 2 properties. They want them tucked away in this quiet neighborhood. So that's how we got here.
Frank, a couple questions. First of all, excellent presentation. I think it was very well thought out, and on behalf of my wife and I, it comes across as you being excellent stewards for our tax dollars, so I appreciate that. A couple things. We have a problem in this town around affordability for education. You're probably aware of the fact of what we pay per student, right? And it's close to 10 times the state average. So we've got serious problems on affordability. First question is, you have to make tough decisions, right, when you have a tough budget. So if we compare what you're proposing here versus what you spend per year in maintenance for the upkeep of the building that you don't want to do anymore and you don't get refunded for from the state, what is that ratio?
It's a good question. I don't have the answer off the top of my head, but we can get it to you.
Yeah, because I mean, you either fix your car or you buy a new one, right? And if you can't afford a new one, fix it. And what you're talking about, for some homeowners in this town, is a couple $100, which doesn't sound like a lot. But it's on top of, we spent a ton of money on these buildings we didn't have, and we're paying for it yearly now. So affordability, in my mind, is a big issue. I don't have kids that age, but I think what you're doing is right on the mark. But we have to be transparent about the cost of one option versus the other. So I would appreciate knowing what that is, number one. Number two, you never want to be in a position where if you hit your budget and you can't finish everything, you have to stop stuff. Because you wanted to know that in the beginning. So what contingency do you have built in to cover overages?
Well, the State Department of Ed won't allow us to go out with any project with less than 5% contingency for project is done. Every project has automatically a 5% contingency built in. However, based on the complexity of these projects, the industry standard is 10% contingency on projects. So we'll take that contingency, and that contingency is used for unforeseen conditions. It's not typically used for bid overages, because we can control overages and bids for the most part, because the only time bids are going over is if there's major issues with steel or material costs go up. But we have a good finger on the pulse as to what square footages are coming in. And planning this far in advance, we make sure that the numbers themselves have escalators on them. So, but yes, there is contingency in the projects to handle the overages. We don't expect it.
Yeah, 10%, so you're saying 10%.
10%.
Okay. The last thing is, what are the projections for student population over the next 5 to 10 years? I mean, we don't want to decide something when people are moving out of New Jersey and your population is going down.
Correct. And the district did a demographic study, and
I'll take that one. So we did do a demographic study, a detailed one that shows actually our enrollment, the Fort aside, enrollment is steadily declining. Factor the Fort in, and it's a totally different story. There's a set number of housing units that are going into the Fort by law, it's a state mandate. There's no way we can fight against it. But with everything we know about what's been built so far and the number of students we've gotten, which is a total of 20 students for the first 116 housing units that have gone in, and you extrapolate that out to the number that we know are going in, it comes to 0.17 students per household, which is roughly equivalent to what we're seeing now in Oceanport schools, 0.2 students per household on average. So that takes us to, what is the number? 109 students, I think, is what we expect after all of the Fort development is done.
So if you net that all out, what happens to the student population over the next 5 years? Is it flat?
Well, I mean, it's hard to figure what the decline will be, but we know if we stay flat and then add 109 from the Fort, we can accommodate that in what's being built, because with the 6 new classrooms, it creates space for more than 109 kids.
Aren't there 150 low-income housing houses?
20% of 639.
So 150, right? And we're gonna say that. I mean, like, I'm hearing these numbers and I'm just thinking we're way underinvolved in this. And I think, look, I think your presentation is fantastic, right? What you've done is fantastic. I just, look, when I hear this.
Well, hold on, if I could, we just, so this gentleman up here was asking a question, the school board member was answering the question, so we could give you your turn in just a moment, but this gentleman had the floor with his question.
Thank you. Okay, so the request is I would like to know what the difference is between upkeep versus new. I appreciate that. I want to say it's some pretty old buildings, big ones, and you always find things you didn't expect. So contingency is important. And the population, I don't know if anybody in the room is in a position, it's not a big issue, but I assume you've looked at the population projections in determining the right approach to take here. And in doing so, is it up, down, flat in general?
we're creating additional classroom space for growth. One of the things that we can't tell you and that DOE won't approve is based upon all of the numbers from Fort Monmouth. DOE is not going to approve us building for potential. They're only giving us approval based on what's been built to date. So our approvals, that's part of the reason why the new additions aren't funded, is because you're not getting the funding based on what happens 5 years from now when the rest of the stuff is built out. They cannot do it, they won't do it. So even though we presented it to them that way, the DOE took the approach that you can only fund what's tangible at this particular time.
Okay, my last question, and thank you for the time. Let's say it's voted down in Oceanport, right, because they take a bigger part of the building. Do you have a plan B?
That was this slide right here. So plan B is that they continue to do what they've been doing. So there is no lesser amount. I mean, obviously, if this were to go down, we would have to reconvene with the district and figure out why did it go down.
There's also a critical subset that we would go after.
In this particular time, in the age of these buildings, we're at that all or nothing. We're really in that spot. to do this piecemeal would not be fiscally responsible at this time. But obviously, if it does go down and voters decide it's not palatable, then we're going to have to look at drastic measures.
Isn't there also a possibility, and I've been following this process all along, and this is really a bare bones version of this. They've tried all different things in the past, and I mean, this proposal I think is great, and it deals with all the things that have to be done. But isn't there a possibility that people vote it down, that the State Board of Education may come down, Department of Ed, may come down and do it themselves and make you do it? Because they're not going to allow these schools to continue to be functioning at the level that they're functioning right now, which is not safe for the kids.
There's also the matter of the state.
Well, wait, I want to get this question. I want to get the answer to that question. If anybody knows.
Yes, so under a law, if you have to fail a referendum with no access costs, the state can come in and say, the public isn't really supporting what you need, we're going to mandate that the school district issue the debt. Two things happen, it's a litigation. So the school would essentially have to sue the state. It takes a long period of time. Two, they generally will only give you the renovations, so I would issue debt for the renovations. And three, they don't give you the same amount of aid that they said they would.
And that was my point.
Yes. So it's a lose-lose situation. You get less and you pay more.
Right.
Clark, for example, had 7 failed referenda. They had additions and renovations. They appealed it, took about 2 years, and they got only the renovations from the state. So it's not an attractive option because the state doesn't like to overrule the local taxpayers.
Yeah, I remember the 90s, Shrewsbury voted down 2 referendums in a row, and then the state came in and did it anyway because the state made them do it. But again, when the state does it, the people don't have control.
Right.
So it's better off, in my opinion, I won't speak for myself, to get the deal that you are making rather than to get a deal that someone's going to force upon you. And someone eventually is going to force this. Because, again, those schools are just deplorable the way they are right now.
Wow.
Let's hope before, there might be members of the public, I do have to just correct one thing, just so members of Seabright understand how the school taxes work. For K through 8, Seabright is considered part of Oceanport. We lost our school district in 2009 through legislation, and so we are seen as Oceanport in the eyes of the state. You can see that our percent is much less than Oceanport, and that is because we have a funding formula that is based 98% on population and 2% land value, and that's how our share for Oceanport is calculated. That is very different than the Shore Regional School District, where we participate for high school, where we use the regional school funding formula, which is based primarily on land value. And even a small fluctuation in our population with our land values can really cause some painful tax increases, as you know. But the Oceanport is actually pretty stable because we have that set formula and we know what our populations are from year to year. So I just want to make sure that this is not Shore Regional. This is Oceanport K to 8.
Thank you. Nice job.
And then I think gentlemen are going to have a question.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my concern here is that based upon the numbers, I've seen frequently asked questions, it says that there's 639 units that are coming into Oceanport. 150 of those are going to be affordable housing. And I guess, are we using the same assumption that we're going to have 0.17 students in an affordable housing complex? Because if I'm using an average of like 2, that equates to 300 students, which is 25 a grade.
Please.
Hi, Michelle McMullen, I'm the board president. There are 2 big units coming into play like on the board that are going to be the affordable housing. I think there are 48.
Every development project is 20% affordable across the board.
But I mean the 2 buildings that they devoted to, those 2 buildings.
Every housing project costs 20%,
So RPM is coming up with a fairly sizable amount of 1 bedroom. I think it's 48 1-bedroom affordable units. So you figure in a 1-bedroom apartment, you're not having more than 1 child.
I think RPM, which is the first development project, it was a large development project. It gave us a really good cross-section because it was 116 units. It was one of the larger development projects coming in Fort Monmouth. And we're seeing averages that are very consistent with what we're seeing in Oceanport. So I truly do believe RPM is a really good indicator of what's to come. The numbers don't lie. We're at 0.17 students per unit right now at RPM, and that does take into account the 70% affordable, which is what we'll see across the board as the other development projects come online.
And those are 2 and 3 bedroom units that we found 20 children from in the past year. So we've had 20 children from 2 and 3 bedroom units, and the remainder, I believe, of the units are much lower bedrooms. Thanks.
Before we get a return, I just want to make sure anybody else?
I just have one comment and a question as well.
I'll let you begin.
How does the state's push towards creating K-12 districts, how will that affect this project, if that passes?
We've gone through 4 governors who have all said that they want to regionalize, and none of them have done so yet. So for a project like this, in the condition that our schools are currently in, while it's a factor in consideration, it is not something that can actually stop us from wanting to move ahead with the project, because the likelihood of regionalization seems to have passed the buck multiple times, and even with the current governor, has not really, gotten traction.
And a K-12, a K-12 district does not mean a K-12 building.
No, I realize that, and I'm not saying that none of these residents, I can obviously say that these renovations are desperately needed.
The other piece
No
with
doubt about it.
regionalization is you still need a place to send the children to school.
Right.
So your buildings are actually still going to be needed, regardless of whether you have one regional superintendent. Regionalization really impacts central office more than it impacts school buildings.
But it does also conglomerate, it does spread the wealth through more towns, essentially, or possibly. So it wouldn't be necessarily just us in Oceanport, it might be somebody.
I don't think anybody knows what it's going to look like. It hasn't happened.
Right, exactly, but I'm just saying, I don't know how that would affect that, so I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah.
I know that the push is there, and I'm relatively new to this whole process.
I understand.
You know,
Any
I'm curious.
other questions on the construction project?
Mayor, can I just add, RBA is in the back, and she has an answer from Mr. Bieber. We've spent $1.7 million on required maintenance over the past 10 years.
Over 10 years,
Yeah,
so it's 170.
yeah.
It's been going on each year.
And
And that's just from my phone what I can do for you.
so she did
Thank you,
that.
I appreciate that. That's good to know.
I just want to clarify that the election day is a special election. This is the only thing on the ballot. It's Tuesday, December 10th, and the polls are open from 2 p.m. until 8 p.m. It's all your regular polling places across the Brighton Oceanport will be open from 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. that day. And you can also vote by mail according to all the regular vote by mail rules. So I think that's you need a 7-day lead time in order to submit or request your vote by mail ballots. If you're going to be out of town on December 10th, if you want to vote. On the Monmouth County Vote website has all the details about how to do it by mail.
We've also left on your table an invitation, because we're having an open house 3 days before the vote. Saturday, December 7th, we're starting 10:30 in the morning at Maple Place School. You'll actually get to tour our existing facilities with the architect and our bond counsel, and get any additional questions you may have answered at that time, so that you can make an informed vote.
Is that 34% guaranteed on the bond piece, or can that go lower?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
So, the state has given the district a letter, as Frank said, saying 40% of this. And that 40% is pursuant to a law that was passed in the year 2000. So from 2000 to 2009, they paid 40%. From 2009 on, the state said, this is a budgetary thing we do every year. We're only going to appropriate 85% of 40%, 85%, 40%, 34%. So that's where it's been for quite a while. Now that's a very good question. Is it guaranteed? Are they going to go to zero? I was asked this question last Thursday at another public hearing for the school district. And I said, well, think about this. The law requires the state The law requires this Board of Education to say in the ballot proposal, we're going to pay 40%. We would love to have put 34%, but the law requires they put 4%. Okay, 40%. If it goes to 0%, are you going to be mad? No. So at that school board, I said, if this goes to 0%, there will be lawsuits throughout the state from every school district. So then the question is, well, how low can they go? Well, in the 1990s, I was doing this. That was for 30 years. I started when I was 7. They didn't have the statute. They didn't have a law that said they had to pay 40%. So if you were a poor district, maybe you get 60%, wealthy district, 20%. In that time period, the lowest they ever went was 68%. As compared to the 85%. So nothing's guaranteed. But when we look at the reality of where the state is with funding, how important the school districts are to the state, I think it's a very conservative estimate to assume that they're going to pay 34%. Long answer, sorry.
No, we did appreciate the feedback. And can I just ask one final one? How come we didn't address the gym at Wolfville? I know you did the tiles and all that stuff, but I know the feedback is like the public didn't say it, but you know, like when I look at what's going on and what's historically, our rec basketball season last year for the youth program didn't start till February, March, and we have a shortage of gym space in our school districts. Yeah, there's one full court basketball gym at Maple Place. You can't play full court basketball at Wolf Hill. And it impacts not only the people that are playing travel basketball, but it impacts our rec programming, it impacts recreation, it impacts probably school time at Wolf Hill and doing things. And the stage there is just, I mean, it takes up half the gym. And I can tell you this from my own experience, like, my son probably would have recruited kindergarten if that gym was better. Because there's no air conditioning, it's really hot, and up in June it's super hot. But I don't know how we don't address that and spend $30 million. I'm flabbergasted at that.
So I'll answer your question architecturally, and then I know that there's other responses that you will receive. So architecturally, we look at a building and we look at and do the survey that we do and do the extensive facilities audit that we do. We do it based on educational parameters. Both of the gymnasiums meet the state recommended guidelines for a gymnasium, or a cafeteria, or in gymatorium. Whatever you want to call it, they meet the state recommended guidelines. We then sat with the staff and the faculty and we went over the deficiencies in the building. And one of the biggest deficiencies was classroom space. There wasn't one commentary about inadequacy of the gym space. Now, you may be talking about the rec program, we're talking about phys ed and the 180 days of phys ed the kids are required to have, and the phys ed program. From that perspective, our analysis was being based on the educational parameters. So we didn't get one. We also sent out a community survey to the community. Google survey went out to every homeowner in the community. The results came back, there wasn't one comment on the gym. Now, this process took a year. We had more than 7 meetings with the board, over the time period that we did this. And we presented our plans multiple times. And over that time, there wasn't one comment on the gymnasiums. Now, if the comment came up, at Maple Place, the gym is landlocked, it's 5,600 square feet, you already said it, there wasn't an issue. At Wolf Hill, it's on the side of the building, it's adjacent to an exterior wall. Could an addition have been constructed there? Yes, it could have been. It would have, as Ms. Gorab said earlier, new construction doesn't get any state aid, so it doesn't qualify. So whatever we added to that, and mind you, if you were talking about just expanding the gym, just making it 10 feet wider and 20 feet longer, that's one thing. If you're talking about making a full-size gymnasium that can accommodate not only the stage, but the gym and sideways basketball courts for rec and all that. You're talking about a complete reconstruction of the gym, and the square footage costs are even more. So not to receive the state aid, it would have added millions to the project. And when the district was deciding what projects to keep, are we gonna really put a sprinkler system in this building? It doesn't have one now. It's not required by code, but should we have one? The district said, yes, we're gonna do that. Are we gonna put an elevator in this building? Maybe we don't need an elevator. It's $500,000, but an elevator and all the ramps. Yes, that's the priority. So obviously, when we're making tough decisions on budget and funding and what will be palatable to the taxpayer, we have to make certain decisions. And given the fact that it never came up as a comment until this project was approved by the DOE already. So for us to put a gymnasium in now, after it's been approved, would delay this process, push the whole thing back. So that's the architectural question, response to your question.
I mean, I'll take the school district response, which is the Board of Education is tasked with building a school, not with building a community center. The needs of the school and the curriculum within it for 380 some odd students, aged pre-K to 4, the gym suits our curricular needs. We have no sports teams, so the needs of the community are not the needs of the school district. So I think that's the basic thing.
I can say that Seabright has an awesome community center, which is going to be restored once we're fully moved into the municipal hall. We have a full court basketball court, which anyone from Ocean Ford is more than happy to come over and use. We'd love to have people over. It's not open right now because we're still over there for office space, but it is going to be restored as a community center, which is what a recreation center, which is what it was originally intended to be.
You know when?
As soon as we can get that building done, get everybody out of there, and then we just have to be, it'll be before you're doing this. Sure,
That's great, because I think Seabright gets play in the lights program.
yeah, they did. But
That's great.
Just a real quick one. I'm not familiar with who's building what in Fort Montefiore location, but I heard some discussion about housing being built there. I mean, in virtually every other town, when somebody comes in and builds something big in the housing environment, they have to contribute something. A firehouse, something. So.
So there's something.
Is it still on?
There's
So
a
you're
whole
not,
commission. There's a whole commission that has jurisdiction over it.
okay. So you don't see any of those buildings
America is
effectively
a part of
contributing to
that.
this? We look at that. Okay.
Thank you so much for coming, for answering our very many questions and giving such a detailed presentation.
Can I just ask one question for, please, for the bond, for the tax implications, I know that seniors are on a tax freeze.
Yes.
How does this tax affect the seniors in the community?
So if a senior does qualify for the tax freeze, this increase does not go on. So if they qualify for the tax freeze, this is part of their taxes like every other real estate tax they pay, so they would not be required to pay this increase.
That's factored into the numbers, or not?
No, well, it's on assessed value, so we don't know
We may have some
how many
question there.
seniors are exempted.
Yeah.
Could move $1, more seniors are exempted. So.
Well, the ask for is getting quickly.
We have a second presentation on our agenda this evening, so you guys who are not interested to hear the update of our cell tower situation. I'll give you all a minute here. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much.
Thank you for having
Do you have your email address as well? You got the answer?
What?
Nice meeting you, Father. Help let us
I know, it's my favorite.
Thank you so much. Next up, we have an update on our cell tower. We have Stefano Scanlon here, who is our representative through his company for our cell tower, as well as our state secretary.
The twain shall never meet.
This evening, he's here in his capacity as our representative.
Mayor, Council, good to see everyone, members of the public, nice to see you all. I'm here to answer questions as long as you need me, but a quick rundown. So the history of the Seabright cell tower goes back, Jack, to probably 15 years or so of searching for locations. I've been involved in this industry for like 27 years now. I started when I was 17, just like that, in the bond business. I got involved 10 years ago, maybe 11 years ago. We looked at probably 8 or 10 sites here in Seabright. The council at that time, when we located the site where the cell tower is now erected, opted to go with a flagpole type tower, which presents some challenges. You have to locate the equipment inside the flagpole enclosure. So you need more height. You need each carrier in a regular tower takes about 10 feet of vertical space. With a flagpole type tower, it's 20 feet, could be 30 feet with today's equipment, because you've got less antennas per sector height. They opted at that time to try to keep height down, that they would go with 2 sites if they needed to. The present site was our first choice, and crammed as much as we could on there. We really anticipated getting 2 carriers on there. And then another site in the corner of the property by where the temporary cell tower is now. If anyone's looked over there, there's an existing site and there's a temporary site as well. That would be the footprint of the second site. We went through our bidding process. It was tough because Seabright, this is previous councils, no one here responsible for this, made some fits and starts and scared away the carriers. They came, they bid, nothing happened, they did it again, they did engineering for several other sites, and the town decided just couldn't pull the trigger to move forward. Now mind you, there were all carriers out there looking for private sites as well. Seabright didn't go out and say, hey, let's create a cell tower, although there were a lot of people clamoring for service at that time, and first aid emergency service as well. But the carriers are going to come. If they can prove they have a need for coverage, they're going to show up, and they're going to find a site if the municipality doesn't provide it. Eventually, you've got some marinas, etc., you would be facing a private site application. Several carriers were in some discussions. Without mentioning names, I'll say that I know that. Seabright finally decided on this 2-site solution potentially, with the first site being the site that's there now. We went forward. We only ended up, even though all 4 carriers were looking here up to that point, we ended up with 1 carrier that was willing to move forward and spend the money on the engineering, and that was Verizon. They moved forward. We did the design and came up with the structure that's there now to sort of be resembling of a structure you expect to see at the shore. We did the flagpole, and so far it worked out pretty well. We then went back out to bid, and we got a second carrier. T-Mobile was ready to go, and is, as of about a year ago, a little less than a year ago. We're now working through the design process with T-Mobile. They came back because the whole process takes a while. T-Mobile changed the types of antennas they use, and they came back with a design that was going to compromise our flagpole structure more than I felt we needed to accept, and more than I thought the council would want to accept. We would have a much wider structure at the top, and the flag would not be able to raise to the top. It was a problem. So I sent them packing back, without bringing that to the council. I used my own judgment at the time. I sent them back and said, you got a problem. We need to work through this. Over a period of about 3 months, 4 months, they came back with a couple different designs. We tweaked things. We ended up with one that would let the flag go to the top, minimize the increase in canister diameter, so it's going to be manageable. Aesthetically, it's going to be, I think, acceptable to everyone. We brought that design to the council. Council approved that. And during that period of time, I was out looking to get the other carrier, if I can, and there was a remote possibility. If I got a third carrier, I might be able to squeeze them on that tower. Also, during this time, the Sprint T-Mobile merger potential was mentioned. So I thought, if we're not going to have 4 carriers, we're only going to have 3. And I have a shot at getting AT&T onto the structure. I want that shot. If I can avoid needing a second structure, I want to do all I can to make sure that we can do that. The council backed me up on that, and I've been shopping AT&T for a while. I pushed them on a couple other projects where they needed me, and AT&T is ready to come now. So now it then became trying to fit this 50 pounds of fish into a 10-pound bag. So we had then to go back to the drawing board. And I had T-Mobile stop because I didn't want them to move further, finalize their design if I needed them to compromise in order for AT&T out. We have gone through that sausage-making process, and we're there, I think. I'm waiting for final approval from T-Mobile to permit AT&T to put their generator over top of T-Mobile's generator, and then we're going to be there. We're going to go, rather than an additional, we originally designed the structure to go up another 20 feet to accommodate 1 more carrier. We're going to go 30 feet, and we're going to get 2 carriers for that. And we figured out how to fit them onto the ground space within that triangle piece. There was a period of time we thought we might have to locate some of AT&T's equipment outside that triangle. I didn't want to do that for a host of reasons, not knowing what the municipality ultimately might want to do with the old municipal building. I didn't want to compromise the use of that space at all. Without mind, that has worked, and we're very close. We're ready to go to bid right now. In fact, you guys wanted to pass a resolution tonight authorizing your clerk administrator to go out to bid. That would be wonderful. There's no obligation, but that would get that process moving. We're ready for that. And AT&T's ready to respond. So I realize some folks are impatient. We'd like to get that temporary tower out of there, but by taking our time and doing it right, this is going to be a structure that's going to be around for the next 35 years, and it's going to have to live with, probably longer than that. If we take a little extra time now, avoid a second structure with our effort, I think it's time well spent. And mind you, the original plan was to have a permanent structure where that temporary structure is. So if it stays there an extra few months, and then we don't have it there for the next 35 years, I think it's a good trade-off. The site will also generate revenue for Seabright. It already is. Probably generate another north of $40,000 a year once we add AT&T on. So it's turned out to be a pretty good project. None of them are perfect. We don't like this equipment. I've been in the business for, again, 27 years. I wish we could not have it or build it out of a new site so it was transparent. We can't do that. We all want our phones to work. And we all demand, we have a voracious and ever-expanding demand, especially all our children and grandchildren, for more bandwidth. So As many people complain about the site of the infrastructure, I nowadays get more people complaining when the phone doesn't work instantly. People won't locate business places where they don't have solid cell service. I have friends who are shopping for houses who just decided the other day, they love the perfect house. There was no cell coverage, it was in North Jersey. They called me to say, we're not buying this house because there's no cell coverage there. We are forever doing that dance about trying to minimize the impact of the equipment. We need to make our phones work and making our phones work at the same time. So in a nutshell, that's where we're at. I could talk another hour if you really want me to, but I'm going to stop here and take questions.
So I have a question. If we do what you're suggesting and the third carrier fits in on that existing pole, and a fourth carrier ultimately does come in, would we then have to build a second tower, no matter, second pole, no matter what?
Good question. I should answer that during my presentation. The answer is we don't know. We would try to get creative all over again. If the Sprint and T-Mobile merger goes through, there's a possibility we won't have a fourth carrier. There's still a possibility we will. We'll have to get creative. That's probably at least 2 or 3 years down the road, maybe 5 years down the road. God willing, we're all here to deal with it. Maybe God willing, so get away, you don't have to. Congratulations, man. We don't know.
So you think there is a possibility that the fourth one, if it came, could fit in?
No, I don't think it will fit in there, but who knows at that time how we could get creative. We may be able to do, I've already done a little bit of thinking about it. Maybe we do, because it's one carrier, maybe we figure out a spot to do a telephone pole type tower that's not too tall, that everyone decides we can tolerate. But no, we won't ever be able to fit a fourth carrier there. The structure, the footprint, no matter how much the equipment downsizes, I am packing that site with AT&T.
Right.
So we'll have to get creative at that point.
All right, so assuming, and I don't think we're going to have that resolution tonight, but hopefully we can have it for December to go out for bid. Assuming we do that, and assuming AT&T was the only one to respond, how long, can you give us some sort of a guesstimate of how long that the temporary tower is still going to be?
Well, we have a couple things going on at that point.
Okay.
The removal of the temporary tower won't be dependent on AT&T for much longer, because we're going to get that design firmed up any moment in the next few weeks. So at that, we just still have to sign our lease with T-Mobile because we held up because we didn't have to finalize leases.
Okay.
We got to get that signed, and as soon as we do that, T-Mobile can go. And
so we don't have to wait for AT&T for T-Mobile.
No, you don't. And then we will, then we'll be facing AT&T wants to get on quickly. They might want a temporary tower. We have to decide, do we want the revenue, or do we want to just wait and push them on the tower? I think your answer would probably be, let's just get them on the tower as quick as possible.
That's my personal opinion.
And so my gut is wrong.
So assuming that that's what we want, how long, can you give us just a guesstimate of how long the temporary tower needs to be there?
Well,
if AT&T never needs a temporary tower.
Our next big gating issue, right, is Memorial Day. It's the start of the summer where we want to reclaim that parking. My goal is to have that parking reclaimed by then at the outset.
If you feel safe that we could tell the people that on Memorial Day that tower was gone?
Given the nature of the construction industry itself, particularly the wireless industry, I need to have a caveat, but I'm 70% confident.
Otherwise, it's an extra $1 an hour for the parking spaces.
There you go. I like that. The goal, that's the goal, and that's T-Mobile's goal too.
All right, so we can see if we tell people that we anticipate by Memorial Day.
Yeah, that's a real hard and fast goal. I probably hedging a little more than I need to, but better underpromise.
That's fine.
And overperform.
As long as we have a date. Because we have been previously telling people that thing was going to be temporary and it was going to be done like in a couple of months, and people think that we're.
I'm here to say, to give you cover, and to say part of it is us saying, well, wait a minute, we have some other opportunities we want to take advantage of, and I think that's paid off. And we did have some design questions as well. I think that's also paid off. We're going to end up with a better a better structure.
It sounds like it.
I think we're there.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Originally, we were told that that tower would handle 3 carriers, but what you're saying now, it has to go 20 feet higher to handle 3 carriers.
Well, actually, I don't know who told you that. Originally, it was
I was on the planning board when it got approved, and that's what we were told.
That's what Verizon came in and presented.
Well, I haven't seen that transcript because they didn't have business telling me that. It was, originally, the vision was 2 carriers on this site in 40 feet of space. Now, I did have them build an extra canister because it didn't cost us anything below. That's now proven pressure. I'll pat myself on the back because we're going to use that for one of AT&T's canisters. But originally, the tower was built to handle 1 carrier with an extra canister as well, so 3 canisters total. And then we're going to put a 20-foot extension off the second carrier. I don't know what their testimony was, but that's what the original design was. We're now, so the expectation was we wouldn't fit a 3rd carrier, but in the back of my mind, and have the extra canister, who knows, what's happened has happened, but they probably shouldn't have been promising that. That's a bonus.
I mean, I can back John up, that is what they told us. What they told us was, as long as the tower was, it was going to go up to fit the 3rd carrier, but not 30 feet. It was going to go up, I forget how much they said, but the idea was there was going to be 1 at the bottom, 1 in the middle, and 1 at the top. And that's what we were told.
Well, all the design documents.
Starting out like that, and
Well, yes, but it's going up to the top.
It's ending up there. It's 10 feet higher than we anticipated. In order to accommodate a 2nd carrier, we get the 3rd carrier as well.
May I just ask a quick question?
It's up to the mayor. She's running this.
It'll be very quick.
Sure.
How much of an extension is being put on there?
30 feet.
And that's approved for wind loading and everything?
Yeah.
You'll be able to put a flag on it?
Structure, you got it. Yeah. The structures are built to be pretty resilient. We've done extensions on towers that weren't designed to have extensions. They're generally overbuilt. If you look at scenes now, when you see them, you see video of what we had Hurricane Sandy. If you look at the several hurricanes down in Louisiana, and they pan across these devastated areas where everything's leveled, the cell towers are incredibly still standing. Sometimes they're a little tilted, but
No additional guide wires or anything?
so no guy wires at all. There aren't any now, and there won't be as number of them. So, but yeah, it has been they have certified its structure to be able to handle.
Thank you.
Could you speak to this in light of the 5G push?
Sure. 5G is, for the most part, 5G is going to be small cells on telephone pole height structures. It's going to be data, very high speed, high capacity data. Your phone voice will most likely still be going through cell towers for maybe ever. Probably shouldn't predict out that far, but a very short distance broadcast. So the way these systems are being designed, we're never going to be without macro towers, the bigger cell towers. So 5G, or small cells, won't replace our cell towers. You can't ever fit in every area because the distance that equipment broadcasts is very limited, which is why they need them every few hundred feet. And that's about as far as they can go, the signals from 5G small cell antennas. So you'll have those systems designed around your macro larger towers. In a town like Seabright, I'm hopeful that where we have a whole thin peninsula from here north, there's some hope that we can get away without another structure down there. But we don't know. Right now, we're focused here and so are the carriers, but 5G will never replace the need for these macro sites.
I can tell you that Verizon has been to town looking at 5G possibilities, and they have put forth a proposal. We did not like exactly where they were putting the poles, so we asked them to come back and come up with another plan. We've not heard back from them. So they have that in mind, but what that was saying is absolutely, I mean, they told us the same thing.
That was almost a year and a half.
Yeah, that's like a year and a half ago at this point. But they have designed on Seabright to put 5G in.
Well, everywhere, actually.
Right.
And the federal government's taking action now. With the original macro sites, the government decided at one point that it was important that we have seamless wireless communication systems. So the federal government came in with the Telecom Act of '96, pretty much mandated that municipalities, if they can prove they had a coverage gap, they're going to win. They're sue your zoning board of win. It's happened in a lot of places. One can debate all of that. Without that, we probably wouldn't have a function. You'd probably have to have 3 phones. It would not have been an effective system. This same process is now happening with 5G. And there is a bill that's been introduced at the state that would pretty much mandate that room be made for the 5G equipment. Most of that won't be on existing telephone poles. It'll be new, but we'll deal with that as we go. But that's in the offing. It's going to happen.
Thank you.
Very
Thanks for
good.
having
Thank
us. Anytime. Appreciate it. And if we put on the agenda, getting that bid ready.
For
we're
December.
ready to go.
Yeah.
Perfect, guys. What's the date in December?
We have December 3rd, we have.
That would be wonderful.
December 17th, the project launches.
Okay.
That's a week.
Well, it's, AT&T's gonna call tomorrow, they're like, okay, we're ready to go. And
What I call special for December. Well, that's what I'm saying.
if there's a way to squeeze it on the third.
Okay, it'll be on December 3rd.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Thanks, everyone.
Moving on to our consent agenda. You want to?
That's what I was told.
Repeat item 176, 2019.
Yes, Mayor, may I make a motion to pull 176-2019, and I will move the rest of the consent agenda. You want to make it?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second, we need a roll call.
Councilman Berthold?
Yes.
Councilman Keeler?
Yes.
Councilman Kelly? Yes. Councilman Lexstein?
Yes.
Councilman Schwartz?
Yes.
And can you just note for the record, the 2020 calendar, there was a change from what we discussed in the workshop?
Right, the July meeting dates changed. It's just pushed back to
So it's not the-
Accommodated planning board.
And then item, resolution 176, 2019, I'll come back once the question is resolved.
Yes.
Okay, good. Moving on to ordinances, we have ordinance 22, 2019.
I'll move to introduce.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second, ordinance number 22, 2019. Public hearing on this ordinance will be held on December 3rd, 2019, and advertised according to law. We need a roll call for this introduction.
Councilman Berthold?
Yes.
Councilman Keeler?
Yes.
Councilman Kelly?
Yes.
Councilman Lexstein?
Yes.
Councilman Schwartz?
Yes.
This is the salary ordinance. This is something that's kind of housekeeping. It creates a range for borough employees' salaries. This year, it's extended over a 3-year period, so that we don't have to do it every year. Now we have ordinance number 23, 2019, and that amends and supplements chapter 150, packaging practices. This is the plastics ordinance that we talked about in the beginning of the meeting this evening.
Yes, Mayor, I passed out that this is a little bit different than what was discussed at the workshop. It's mostly just typographical errors. But I don't know, I passed out copies. I don't know if everyone had a chance to look at it. I mean, I can go over everything if anyone has any questions. Otherwise, I'll move to introduce it.
So a copy of the ordinance been made available?
No, I don't know. Just introduce it. Is it out there?
The copy, without your.
Okay, then I'll go over it. If there's it's out there. All right. I'll go over it. All right, so in 150-1, there was just a typo in that, in the intent of the ordinance, you don't hear, I have another copy. So the words plastic utensils was not listed in the intent, so I just added that. The intent of this ordinance is to adopt regulations relating to and limiting the use of single-use plastic bags, polystyrene, I don't know if I'm saying that word right. Polystyrene. Polystyrene foam containers, plastic utensils, and plastic straws. So we just wanted that clear in that sentence, that we were talking about plastic utensils and plastic straws. In 150-3, I just added plastic straws and plastic utensils to the title because it wasn't there previously, and it didn't make much sense because it sounded like we were only talking about plastic carry-out bags. But we wanted to make sure that the caption for that title was also plastic straws and plastic utensils. In the exceptions clause, previously it said food service establishment, but that eliminated food marts, which doesn't make any sense, and like supermarkets that might give out hot foods. So we wanted to make sure that that covered all businesses or stores. So I took out food service establishment and changed it to business or store. And we also eliminated the option that someone may ask for a plastic straw. We took that out. There should be no reason anyone would need a plastic straw. But we did want to leave in the plastic utensils because some people, when they get takeout, they may not have the ability to read in their car or whatever they're going, they may need a plastic utensil. So, but again, that would only be upon request. And additionally, we also wanted to add, and this came at the request of 7-Eleven, who indicated to me that they were very concerned about this ordinance, and they contacted me. They said they do not have an option of not having plastic cups for their sodas. This is what they told me. 7-Eleven, the owner, said, not sitting in Japan, but sitting in Seabright, the Seabright franchise owner, contacted me and indicated that the only type of cups they can get for their sodas, not the Slurpees. The Slurpees, they have paper cups, but for the sodas, the only thing they have are plastic cups. But she assured me that those are multi-serving plastic cups. So additionally, this ordinance should not be read as prohibiting cups or containers which may be utilized for more than a single serving. So John and I had talked earlier, and what we're going to try to do is figure out exactly the type of cups that they have for the future. Maybe we can amend it in the new year and figure out the thickness of those cups and maybe supplement the ordinance that way. But for now, we're going to just do it so it doesn't prohibit the cups or containers. And the containers we're talking about are the type of containers, you know, when you go to get takeout or something, they put things in plastic containers that a lot of people save and reuse for their own leftovers. So we didn't want to penalize people from being able to do that also. So the final sentence I'm adding to that paragraph is additionally, this ordinance should not be read prohibiting cups or containers that may be utilized more than a single serving. And then finally, in section 4 of the ordinance, I just took out the language that said it should take effect immediately upon its passage to suggest that that was not the intent. The intent is that this ordinance shall take effect on January 1st, 2020. That's always been the intent. So those are all the changes.
Yes, one.
Okay. So with that said, I will make a motion to introduce.
Second.
Motion is second. Ready for roll call.
Councilman Herzog?
Yes.
Councilman Keeler?
Yes.
Councilman Kelly?
Yes.
Councilman Lutstein?
Yes.
Councilman Schwartz?
Yes.
And then moving on to ordinance number 24, 2019, and this adjusts costs and appropriates funds for the building.
I'll make a motion to introduce.
Second.
Councilman Herzog?
Yes.
Councilman Keeler?
Yes.
Councilman Kelly?
Yes.
Councilman Lutstein?
Yes.
Councilman Schwartz?
Similarly, capital ordinance number 25, 2019, for this building.
I'm sorry, Mayor. I got a shout for a second.
We're doing capital ordinance 25, 2019.
I'll second it.
Okay, Councilman Herzog?
Yes.
Councilman Keeler?
I'm sorry, I don't have 25. Did you say 25?
I'm looking at it over again.
Do you want me to read this or just? I'll abstain.
Councilman Kelly?
Yes.
Councilman Lutstein?
Yes.
Councilman Schwartz?
Yes.
Okay, the public hearing for these ordinances will be held on December 3rd and advertised according to law. We have our new business and the vouchers.
So,
I'll second it.
Councilman Berthold?
Yes.
Councilman Kelly?
Yes.
Councilman Keeler?
Yes.
Councilman Lexstein?
Yes.
Councilman Schwartz?
Yes.
Moving on to the council committee reports. First up, we have the teaching grant chaired by Councilman Schwartz.
For the beach, we're going to have more lockers this year, and possibly cabanas on the beach. We're replacing some old lockers. I want to mention what a good job that the beach did this year. They got a wonderful letter from Edgewater. We lifeguarded their beach, and they were probably going to do it again. When I was resend the letter. Yeah. I don't think one hand does like the other. And that's all I got.
Yes. We have finance, insurance, court. Councilman.
Just in progress, Mayor, because I have three things to bring up in executive session.
Okay. We have administration, shared service, and public relations.
I'm going to say progress for the most part. I just want to note that we did have an incredibly successful the trunk or treat and parade. I thought it went off very, very well. The kids all enjoyed it as usual, and looking forward to doing that again next year. And hopefully this year we will be doing the Christmas decorations contest again. So that's something to look forward to. Otherwise, progress.
Public Works and Building Department, Councilman Berthold.
I'll just say that the Public Works Department did put in all but 8 of the dishes that go in under the storm drain covers, the manhole covers. 8 of them, we have to readdress some issues that were going on there. With the minor flooding that we had this afternoon, the head of the DPW contacted me and told me that the dishes are working phenomenally in the sense that he went down River Street and the pumps weren't even running. So he was surprised by that, how little the pumps were running during that flood event. So we're keeping a lot of water out of the sewer system, and that's going to save the taxpayers some money on the long end. Hopefully you'll see it, in the future you'll see a change in the sewer rate as that comes into effect. So fingers crossed that means you're in that direction. Other than that, progress made.
Thank you, Councilman. So we have our capital plan, flood control, and beautification. Councilman Kelly.
Progress.
Councilman. I'll just keep it short, given that we have executive session still pending. In addition to recognizing the great trunk or treat, I also just want to thank everybody for keeping our Veterans Day tradition alive, particularly Councilman Keeler. Faithfully, 11/11/11, Councilman Keeler leads our town in Veterans Day service, and thank you very much appreciated.
As always.
Yeah, and this town runs on volunteer power, right? So thank you everybody for your time and all that you do for Seabright. Just a couple of date recaps. We have a meeting scheduled for December 3rd. That was not part of the original meeting calendar that was approved for 2019. So that meeting has been noticed, and we will be meeting on Tuesday the 3rd. And our last council meeting of the year is the 17th. And then don't forget, there was a, I'm sorry, what is it? And I'm sorry, the referendum vote is December the 10th. Mark your calendars, and the open house will be held at the Oceanport Schools, as they said, on December the 7th. Finally, I just want to highlight that as part of the consent agenda this evening, new firefighters were appointed to the Seabright Fire Rescue this evening. We have new full members to welcome: James Correo, Andrew Hagenberg, Benjamin Perrin, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, and John Spirito. So welcome to those new firefighters. Thank you so much for your service. discuss, I believe this personnel matters in particular.
Yes, but there's other things.
Personnel and, I guess, we'll take a motion to go into closed session. When we come back, we're going to adjourn the meeting and take no further formal action this evening.
I'll make a motion to go through executive session.
All in favor? So we'll briefly adjourn to the closed session and then come back to adjourn. Thank you. Thank you.